In today's digital world, you can still get lost, and using a compass is quickly becoming a lost skill. In today's video, I'm going to teach you how to use your compass. Head on over to VentureSurplus.com and use coupon code LANDNAV for 10% off your next order. This thing is a U.S. military Lensatic compass, and it's kind of scary. And a lot of you probably watching this going, why are you calling it scary? It's just a compass. Well, it's kind of complicated looking when you start digging into it and opening it up and looking at what's going on in here. And for a lot of people, it's their first exposure to a compass. So it can kind of be scary because it's got a lot going on. So today, we're taking a look at the Lensatic compass, all the features and how to use those features so that way you can get out there and use this compass. All right, so this is our Lensatic compass. Let's go over the features. First off, we have folded up like this with our front and our base. To open it up, we're just gonna move our thumb loop out of the way. It kind of acts as a safety lock to help keep everything shut and safe. Opening it up, we have our front cover again and our base. Now, first feature we're really gonna go over though is this scale right here. It's just a map scale and it's set for military maps. So it's at a 1 to 50,000 scale. So it can work for our 1 to 100,000s, but it's not going to work so well for anything like Forest Service maps or your Nat Geo maps that are set to all sorts of crazy scales that you're going to need a protractor for. But on a 150 map like this one right here, I'm just going to find 2 points and measure that distance between the two. Its increments are in thousands of meters, so we have 0, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 right here at the gap where it folds, 4,000, and we go all the way up to 5,000 up here at the end, or 6,000, sorry. So thousands of meters with dashes in between for your hundreds of meters. Pretty easy to use that scale. Now from there, we're gonna focus on the base. Now, what locks this floating dial, we'll get into in a second, is the rear sight. We get that out, and the floating dial can move, lock it down. That is locked for transport and just securing that thing from getting damaged while you're walking around and doing whatever you're doing. But now it's out of the way, we'll go over that in a second though. First main feature we see is the bezel. This is a rotating bezel. Every time we rotate that hair click, that is 3 degrees. So just know that if you're using this to find a direction, every time you click that, that's 3 degrees. And that can also help you when setting declination, which we'll cover in a whole another video. But yeah, on that bezel, you see this illuminated or front luminous sight or line, whatever. It's just an illuminated line that helps you when you're trying to find a direction and pull an azimuth. So you can rotate that around and line up with your north arrow. Underneath, that's the lens you see here. You have a fixed index line. That as well is for pulling a direction. Everything you're going to look at on here and we're going to go over is just pulling directions and being really, really accurate at doing that. So we have our short index line, our long index line. Underneath all that, we have a floating bezel. On that floating bezel, we have a north-seeking arrow. We have a west indicator and an east indicator, and hopefully south is pretty straightforward to you as far as which way south. And around all that is kind of what makes the Lensatic compass a little scary to somebody that doesn't have a lot of experience with the compass, is seeing all those numbers. Now on the outside of that ring, we have mils. For the average civilian, mils are useless. There's 6,400 mils in a circle, and outside maybe surveying and guys doing really accurate, plotting, they're never really going to need mils within, civilian world. It's mainly a military thing just for targeting. I was a forward observer, and we use mils. That's what I worked in, not degrees. But underneath those mils in red is degrees. 360 degrees in a circle, all up there in increments, so you can kind of find your direction really accurately. Mils are more accurate, degrees work just fine, and these are really accurate compasses. So that's the bezel, everything within the bezel. From there, we have our rear sight, and that, again, locks that floating bezel in. When it's folded down, everything's closed up. When you open it up, it lets it float free. On the rear sight, we have this sight right here, a little short one that lines up with our front cover, And then we have a lens. And this lens is what gives the Lensatic compass its name. That lens is literally just, why it's a Lensatic compass. And that's used when we're finding super accurate directions, which we'll go into in a minute once we're done covering the features. From there, thumb loop, which I already talked about a little bit, helps just secure the front and the base together. All right, so that's the base. Let's move on to the front cover. So we only have two things going on here other than part of the scale, and that is two illuminated dots and this siding wire that you can see right there, hopefully pretty well. Now those are just made for pulling super accurate directions. So when you fold this thing up, we'll go over this method in a second. You can fold this up, use your rear sight, use your rear lens, have it sitting up a little further if you need it to be, and you can pull a super accurate direction when used in conjunction with your fixed index line and your illuminated luminous index line. So those are all the features of your standard Lensatic compass. Now, let's go over how to use those features to actually pull a direction. All right, so using those tools and features that are within the Lensatic compass, we can pull directions in two ways. There's really just two methods to do the same thing. The first method is center hold method. Open our compass up, get that rear sight out of the way, get that front cover down level, and we're gonna hold it in two hands at about waist level. Two hands just because it's really steady, be the most accurate. Get that floating dial really level so it's floating freely, and we're gonna point at our object or target we wanna find direction to. So in conjunction with the front index line, the siding wire, that front sight on the front cover, and then our hand and our eyeballs, we're gonna point as accurately as possible with the middle of our body to that object. And now that front index line is gonna be laying right over top of the degree and the direction to that item or object, or whatever you wanna call it. So pretty simple. So none of the trees in front of me are right about 42 degrees or so. Nice and easy. Let's go over another method that's way more accurate. So our next method, a little more accurate, a little more slow, but great for long distance targets, objects, places you want to go to and plot on your map, figure out where you're going, is the hand to cheek method. And we're going to fold that front lens up with our rear lens a little bit. You don't have to close it all the way. I like to. You can leave it a little open, up to you. Fold that thumb loop down. And like I talked about, it's kind of like a pistol grip. Hold it right there. Take your other hand and you're going to bring it literally hand to cheek. So getting that down, we use our front sight along with our front aiming wire and line up with the item we're looking at, or object or whatever it may be. Once we've lined up with it properly in conjunction with that rear sight, front wire, we're gonna look at that lens on the back end. And look right down to our floating ring or whatever, and that front index line is right over our direction. Way more accurate, a little slower. It can still be used at nighttime because you have an illuminated dial, illuminated dots on your aiming wire, everything in between. So you can still pull a direction at night that way if you really want to, but way more accurate. Now, that's how to find a direction. Let's go over how to use this compass when you're given a direction from your location to find that direction so you know where you're going. All right, the last thing we're gonna go over is how to set a direction on our compass. And that's really simple. And reasons why you might have to set a direction is you pre-plotted a point earlier, you know it's in this direction, that direction, or somebody told you, hey, I know where you're at, go this way. Pretty dang simple. Let's say the direction we're given is 300 degrees, so we're not having to go too far or too much. You can just, I would recommend doing this standing up with a center hold method, but you can do it sitting down and just rotating your compass around like I'm going to do now. But we're just going to rotate our compass until that front index line is sitting on top of 300 degrees. Nice and easy there. Now we know which way 300 degrees is. But let's say we have to start moving and we don't want to have to constantly recheck and reset our compass. Easy way to kind of fix your compass into 300 degrees. Keep that front index line over 300, that's fixed. And we're going to rotate our bezel and get that illuminated line right over our north seeking arrow. And hopefully that's right about over it now. I can't see quite well. But now, if we close this up, lock it up, close it up, we start walking, we're doing some dead reckoning. We get to a point, we want to make sure we're still on track going 300 degrees. Open her up, get that lock out of the way, put that north seeking arrow right under that illuminated line, boom, right back on 300 degrees. Super simple, super easy. So that's how to set a direction on your compass. All right, so there you have it. That's how to use the Lensatic compass pretty quickly. So now you know all about it. Stay tuned because we're putting out more land nav content in the near future. So that way you can get up to speed on how to find yourself and not get lost. So appreciate you watching. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.